I'll be giving you an update on the Groundwater Information Network. Most of you are familiar with it. Many of you are partners within it. So this is just an opportunity to let you know what's been happening over the last year. A brief recap of the Groundwater Information Network. It's a federal, provincial, territorial, and international collaboration of groundwater data providers to connect distributed databases on the internet using geospatial standards so that it appears as if there is one large database of groundwater data on the internet in standard formats and standard access mechanisms. The idea is that a user could enter these types of connected data networks at a reconnaissance level, find basic information, and then dig deeper to the original sources by following the links if they need more information. But it does provide a standardized access mechanism and standardized format across Canada and also between Canada and the US, although currently the US aspect of this, their web services right now are a little bit unreliable. So you can see GIN as a national data network for groundwater. The team itself is greatly reduced these days to 4 people, Eric Bover, myself, Simon Gagnon, and Francois Lepinot. And many thanks to them for all the great work they've done despite the reduced capacity. The project itself is scientifically motivated from the recognition that to achieve results in complex environments that typically involve the complete water cycle, not only do we have to keep in mind all aspects of the water cycle, such as atmospheric, surface water, as well as groundwater, but we need to be able to integrate the data in order to do that. So integrated science requires integrated data. And GIM provides an input into integrated data. On the other hand, that is from the policy side, there have been numerous studies done on the state of groundwater and the needs of the groundwater science, groundwater policy and decision making over the last 25 and 30 years. And they all come to similar conclusions. Conclusions are that the problem being, that the data is hard to find and use, and the recommendation that it needs to be more consolidated to allow people to have better access to it and be able to deal with it more quickly and more easily than before. So those are recommendations that came out of many reports. And GIN is a response to largely this problem and these recommendations. And the most important, I guess, location is direction from the Senate itself calling for these things. So not only various reports, but also direction from the Senate. And there is a larger movement afoot, or internet, if I could say, these days, called the Internet of Water, of which GIN plays a part. The idea being that all the needs that I mentioned are not needs that are specific to Canada. They're needs actually shared by groundwater agencies or various organizations, academic, government, etc., around the world. And there's a growing recognition that one way to resolve the issue of distributed knowledge and data is through connecting through the internet. So there's an effort to make an Internet of Water right now. And we've been working with some of these agencies to ensure that there's a groundwater component, and GIN from Canada's side can be seen as a groundwater component to the broader Internet of Water. I won't speak more about this, but there's a whole larger presentation and movement of here that GIN is a part of, that's valuable to recognize. So let's move on to recent results. They're going to be separated into 2 sections. One is on some technical aspects, primarily the portal and the data in GIN, and the other is the usage and various uptake of GIN. That's quite interesting and will probably be the focus. So with the GIN portal, most of you are aware of that the data network that I described as a connection via standards of data providers can be accessed through a data portal that's provided by the GIN project. and we've been working on a version 2 for quite a while now, with many bumps along the way. But we're very optimistic that we'll have a version 2 sometime in the new year, presumably in the early new year. So for those of you that visit the GIN portal, you'll notice that its look and functionality is a little outdated, I should say. And we're in the process of updating that to something that looks like what you see on screen. So we have a new portal coming soon. As part of that portal, there's significant new data. One data set in particular that we've discussed, particularly in the national dialogue on groundwater in Canada, is the need for essentially a national monitoring station network for Canada. And GIN had begun this a while ago, and we undertook about 2 years ago, if I remember correctly, to extend it to include all the monitoring station networks within Canada and link them together into a uniform coverage. And version 2 of the portal will include version 2 of the monitoring station data, which includes all data providers currently for monitoring station networks, with the exception currently of Quebec, who we're still in discussions with about how to make that happen. So that's a significant upgrade, and the upgrade is done in such a way that it will be regularly maintained and updated so that the information will stay current. So there's various update cycles built into the system, dependent on what the frequency of update is at the local data provider. And I should add that it's GIN itself overall, not just for monitoring data, uses a hybrid system where some of the data is dynamically accessed on request and some of it is cached locally and then accessed. And that's a longer discussion, but it uses this kind of hybrid network. Following on the data theme, GIN's been working very closely with the Canada One Water project that you'll hear about later, which is developing a national hydrological model and with climate scenarios across the country, with some very big data sets, both as inputs and outputs of the modeling process. And so we've been involved in ensuring that the standards-based data delivery that GIN is built on will also be used by C1W, so both GIN can absorb it, but that other data users can also take advantage of because of their international standards. Now, this is particularly challenging for C1W because of the size of the data sets. Many of the data sets are massive in many gigabytes and require some special attention to make them work with the particular data formats. And that work is going well, and it's in a prototype stage. And we've seen many examples of good data delivery that way from this. So very exciting to add this data to GIN, but also to have it available independently of GIN if you want to get to it. GIN has also been collaborating with the Climate Change Program on the Permafrost Information Network, data network, and portal. And alongside with the GIN portal to be released in early January will be the PIN portal. So there's a new look and feel to the PIN portal that will be similar to GIN's and should be released around the same time. Fingers crossed that some technical hurdles we still have to overcome will actually be overcome by that point in time. But that's also coming down the road. So moving on from technical matters, let's talk about some interesting usages of GIN and its pickup and feeding into some broader networks and reporting mechanisms, which we initially envisioned, 10 years ago plus when we started GIN, but we're now actually seeing it being a reality, and it's quite encouraging and heartening to see. So I'll lead you through the story on that. To start with, coming out of the pandemic, there was a bit of a dip in usage in GIN, but now it's fairly stabilized to what it's been pre-pandemic levels were, and about over 1,000 users a month, and 10 to 15,000 water well views a year, several hundred views and downloads of aquifers. So given the narrow scope for this kind of data, this is quite reasonable and steady usage. Now, in terms of pickup of gin, the interesting thing that's happened over the last, let's say, couple of years is that gin is starting to feed into broader data networks. I mentioned the Internet of Water as one of those, but also others, such as the Federal Geospatial Platform and the Open Science Data Platforms, which Canadian federal government platforms data. For those of you that are partners in GIN and provide data, you might remember a couple of years ago that we had a poll asking about your willingness to participate in this kind of data exposure. I'm pleased to say there was unanimous consent for that. And so if you go actually visit the Open Science Data Platform, you'll notice that there are a variety of water well and monitoring station information available, flowing from you partner agencies to GIN, to the Federal Geospatial Platform, to the Open Science Data Platforms. So providing more opportunities for that data to be seen. We made a great effort to ensure that the metadata pointed back and acknowledged the original data sources. So if you notice that isn't the case, please let us know, because we always want to acknowledge where the data is coming from. And in some cases, the links are going back to that original data, depending on what type of data it is. Okay. Following this theme on national uptake, the Groundwater Geoscience Program is recently, and for the first time, contributed to the Canada Water Act annual report, which is an annual report on the state of water in the country. And as part of this reporting, GIN made a contribution outlining the state of data consolidation effectively for Canada. At the same time, we've been in close collaboration and conversation with the Canada Water Agency through its development and now through its proof of concept stage for program development. And we are in the preparation of a proof of concept demo, or I should say there is a proof of concept demo in preparation by the Canada Water Agency that GIN is contributing to and will participate in. Again, if all things work out well. But this is exciting because we can see the broader water landscape, including surface water and groundwater, being integrated here. Internationally, exciting development that has been ongoing for the years, but really has reached fruition in the last, I would say, 12 to 18 months. And that is the contribution of GIN to the Global Groundwater Monitoring Network, which is essentially a monitoring network for the world, organized by IGRAC, which is an institution under UNESCO. And you can see the map here that they have monitoring wells from different monitoring networks around the world. And initially, the job was to just get these built into one large global data network, and that was accomplished over the last little while. And I would say accomplished only because of the reuse of the standards that the different countries are using, and particularly the ones that we've helped develop, and are used here in Canada and the US. So through this kind of standardized-based effort, we can build these monitoring networks. GIN represents the Canadian component right now to this network. And then this network itself, for the first time, has fed into the State of Global Water Resources report by the World Meteorological Organization. So we can track a path from building data networks to impacting essentially policy, at least information documents that have the opportunity to impact policy, both at the national level, but also at the global level, which, under the current climate scenarios is, I think, a very important thing. So, I can see this growing and building. And it's the kind of impact that we had envisioned by bringing the data together. But we're starting to see happening now. So very, very encouraging from my point of view. Very briefly, a couple of notable national Canadian meetings that Jin attended and presented at Groundwater in West, Committee on Groundwater in the Prairie Provinces. But we've also had, apart from this, many communications with various other agencies and such as Internet Water, other data providers, and so on. And I'll wrap up there. Just my contact information there as the project lead, but I emphasize that this is a team effort, and if you do come back with detailed questions, they're likely to be answered from one of the more knowledgeable members of the team.
Thank you, Boyan.
Thanks for your attention.